Oh, hello, YouTube. Today in the Naughty Librarian, I am doing my January wrap-up. I managed to read 10 books this January, so I feel like I'm on track. 10 books is usually roundabout what I read in a month. It was a very average month for me. And, there were some hits, there were some misses. I just want to review some books because it's been like a hot second since I have reviewed things. First category is romance, and I read 2 of them. Well, 2.5 really. First off, I read A Matter of Temptation by Stacy Reid. And this book actually came with a novella in the back of it, The Duke's Shotgun Wedding. So it's like 1.5 books. I'm a Stacy Reid stan. Like, if you need to read Stacy Reid, if you haven't yet, great author, so fun. It gives me like all of the rom-com vibes I want, and it's historical. Absolutely adore it. So this is Mina and Simon, right? Mina is, she's a woman with a bad reputation, and she needs to, help her family, which is in dire financial straits. So she needs to get a job. And then you have Simon, he's an earl, and he is very involved in like politics and stuff, and he needs a secretary. Bing, bang, boom. He hires her as his secretary. Mind you, the way that they meet is that her idiot brother challenged him to a duel, and she's like, "You're stupid and gonna die." So she like knocks out her brother, dresses up like a boy. Mind you, it's her twin brother, so at least they like look alike. And she grabs her rapier and says, "All right, let's go duel." So she literally sword fights him and wins. And he's like, "That's hot. I feel weird that you're a man and I'm thinking you're hot. Oh, wait a minute. You're a lady. Okay, like this makes sense now." So what a way to meet. Love that. I love their relationship. It has such funny moments in it. Like, what do you do when you have an erection that just won't quit? Well, you jump in the lake fully clothed. So there's so many funny things happening in here. I really did like their romance. They did have to fight for it a bit. I think the resolution might have been a bit simple, but like, I don't care. I was rooting for them to get with each other. So like, fine, have it be a simple resolution. I don't give a shit. I love them together, and I love this book, and I think it was really great. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. Fantastic. However, the novella in here, The Duke's Shotgun Wedding, I liked considerably less. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I gave it like 2 stars. It had its moments, but overall, it's not the historical romance I like, and I feel like it's an early book for Stacy Reid because I don't think she had hit her stride yet. It's gross, out of lack of a better word. I don't like the dynamics in the relationship. It's literally a shotgun wedding. It's a guy, he just like, "Well, I need a lady, you're here, let's get married." And then she kind of accepts out of like stubbornness. So they get married, and I don't really feel like he treats her particularly well. And it's just blah. Like, I don't know. It's not her best work. So it still counts though. It was like a fairly long novella, so it counts as a book in my opinion. I also read Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca, and I'll be honest here, I think my adoration of this series has gone a bit downhill. I really, really liked the first book of the series, Well Met, and then each book I've not liked as much as the previous one. This one in particular, it was a lot of, I don't know, it feels like almost like women's fiction more than it feels like a rom-com. This is about Dex and Lulu. We've been introduced to these characters in all of the previous books. Lulu is Mitch's cousin. She is a very kind of buttoned up attorney who's a workaholic. And she's like, "I need to not be a workaholic. I'm gonna run off with the Renaissance Festival." So she does that. She ends up traveling along with this it's like a be-kilted Renaissance Fair band, and the leader of it is Dex, and he's like the Renaissance Fair Lothario, and you know, he's been with everybody, but there's more depth to him. He's like, no, I'm not just, you know, a dick with legs. I actually have opinions and a thought process in my brain that works sometimes. And I feel like Lulu comes in fresh and she doesn't really have a reason to treat him as a sex object. So he likes her a lot because she actually talks to him like a human being. Wow, the bar is a little low here. And I didn't really get the sparks between them. I didn't feel like there was enough of their relationship built. It was just kind of like we're friends until all of a sudden they start banging because they got in a fight once. You know, like it wasn't my favorite, but it's not poorly written, and I feel like the story arc works and everything, and it's fine. You know what I mean? I gave it like a solid 3. It's not my favorite thing, and it's not like my least favorite thing. It's just like it could have been better in my opinion, but it's fine. I don't know, maybe I just wasn't vibing with it. Next category is sequels, and I read 3 of them. Let's start things off right here with Blood Marked by Tracy Deonn. So I absolutely adored Legendborn, the first book of this series. Holy shit, was that book phenomenal. So I was very, very excited to get into this one, although look at it. Like that's a lot of book. It's very long, but I do really, really like it. Do I like it as much as I liked Legendborn? Arguably not. Like I think I gave Legendborn an easy 5 stars. This one is more like a 4.25 stars. So not like a considerable drop off, but it does kind of get into a bit of a bridge book where it's like building tension and like adding new elements to the story, but it's not really resolving things. Or I've been calling it bridge book, but really it's middle book syndrome. Like I really wanted this book to stand on its own a bit more rather than have it be so dependent on another book for its beginning and another book for its end, essentially. So that was my main issue with it, that I wish there was a bit more resolution here. However, they do get much deeper into the lore involving this world. So basically, this world, it's like a secret society based on Arthurian legend. So there's demons and they attack humans, and King Arthur's court was the original people who bested them, and then they cast the spell so that their descendants could become avatars for these knights, and they could come back and fight demons. And it also goes into race playing a factor in this, because this is a whole bunch of white people protecting their bloodlines for hundreds of years. And then you have Bree come in, who's Arthur's descendant. She is a young woman of color. So there's a bunch of friction in a inherently racist society. Now having a young woman of color be their de facto leader. There's a lot of more political, societal issues going on in this book, and I love that because it makes it much more realistic, considering, you know, there's demons and Knights of the Round Table in here. There's a lot of fantasy elements. I think it works really well to ground it in the real world that it's taking place in. And I think it makes a lot of really great points. And I like the ending of the book quite a bit. It's a bit of a cliffhanger, but I think it's a good one. I'm very interested to see how things turn out in the last book of this series because, oh boy, good cliffhanger. So yeah, even though it is a bit of a middle book of the series, it does have a lot of things it's doing well. So like, I can forgive its bridginess a bit. So overall, Tracy Deonn is a hell of a writer, and I highly recommend picking this up if you haven't already. I also read The World We Make by N.K. Jemisin, and this is the sequel to City We Became. And oh my gosh, City We Became was like my top books of the year I read it. I was obsessed. So this one, pre-ordered it the second I was able to, and I read it, and I'm so happy with it. Like, I tabbed so many fun lines in it. Oh my gosh, this was fun. I still gave it 5 stars, but really it's like a 4.75 stars, I'll say, if I'm getting really technical on it. Mainly just because I felt like the resolution of this book isn't quite as satisfying as I hoped it would be. I'll say that, but it is an interesting ending, and it leaves the door open quite a bit for more extended universe stories. So I am happy for that, but it could be a bit more satisfying. So overall, the premise here is that cities when they have enough people in them, all with their own hopes and dreams and thoughts, and it forms a culture. The city metaphysically is born, and it creates an avatar who is the living embodiment of the city. And in this particular book series, we're following New York. New York has a main avatar and then an avatar for each of its boroughs because they're so different. So they have like a group. Great, cities come to life and there's avatars. There has to be an oppositional force here, and there is. They're interdimensional Lovecraftian monsters who want cities not to be born, no matter what. And so they're fighting back against them. And I genuinely love all of the thematic elements in this. It has a lot of very specifically New York ideas. It's supposed to. It's literally the avatars of New York. And I've never been to New York, but like I feel like I fully was immersed in the story, even though as someone who doesn't know firsthand what New York is like, I felt like I was just transported. And that's, N.K. Jemisin is just an incredible author in general, so I fully trust them to be able to do that. So overall, I thought this was brilliant, and I love the concept. I love it intensely. It's just the ultimate resolution here was unsatisfying. I won't do spoilers. I think this is only a duology as well. There's a door open for more books though, so hopefully there will be. But yeah, it just ultimately just kind of like meh. Like, I don't want to say what it is, but that's like the vibe of it is meh. Here you go. So it could have had a better conclusion, but ultimately I still really loved it. I tabbed so many good bits of writing in here. Beautiful. Love it to bits. I also read Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, and this is another one that's quite bridgy. It's a bit middle book of the series. However, I think this is not a trilogy. I think there's 4 or 5 books allegedly going to be in it. And I don't know. I feel like not enough really happened in the book for it to stand on its own as its own piece of the story. We do find out more of the overarching like mystery elements, so we are building on that. But it also felt a little bit repetitive, I'll say, for literal reasons. Like, without spoilers, there's a group of characters. They have to run a gauntlet, which is kind of a portal to hell. Hell is in the title. That's not really a spoiler. And they run it, and then they find out we gotta go run it again. So it's like, you don't get to do it twice in the same book. Like, you can't just repeat it. Like, I felt like that was not the right way to go. I didn't write the story, it's not my opinion that matters for that, but personally I was like, I wouldn't have literally repeated the same story again. But that being said, you can see from the edges here, like, I thoroughly tabbed this. Like, Leigh Bardugo is one of my favorite authors. So many great lines in this book. And while I like it, I like where it's going. I like the mystery they're building and the lore they're building and like the weird, almost sexual but not relationships between these characters. I love all that. It's just the story in particular in this one just didn't really function as well as it could. And I also found that this book was trying to be funny, I guess, because Ninth House, its predecessor, I would not say is a funny book. It's very much a serious book. There's occasional jokes in it. This one felt like packing in jokes. There was a lot more purposefully funny things in here, and I don't really feel like it fit with the tone of like literal hell. So I don't know, it just kind of had like a weird disconnect for me. Like, did I like it? Yeah. Like, I love Leigh Bardugo's writing. Like, I'm probably gonna like it even if it's like a lesser work. But ultimately, I don't really think it's the best follow-up to Ninth House. So I ended up giving it 4 stars because, like, yeah, I tabbed the shit out of this. So many good lines in it. I love the building of the mystery elements in this. Just overall, I felt like it had thematic and also like story structure elements that could have been improved upon. Last category is kind of horror and horror adjacent books. So speaking of hell, let's talk about Sign Here by Claudia Lux. This one literally takes place in hell, and I appreciated a lot of like the world that Claudia Lux was building, and I thought it was fun how hell is just literally like being annoyed by everything all the time. When you get to like the higher levels of it, it's more just like the only drink at the bar is Jaeger forever. Like it's just like everything's just mildly annoying forever. Like none of your pens work ever, you know, one of those. So I like the whole like vibe that she's building, how like hell in itself is kind of a corporation. And when you get to the higher levels, you know, there's more perks and stuff, but ultimately middle management is middle management. That's all well and good. And I think if we stayed with that story for longer, I would have liked this more than I did. The main problem here is that there's two stories happening at the same time that aren't related to each other, like at all. So we have our hell storyline. Our main character is Peyote Trip. I know. That's our A story. And our B story is just like a family drama with the Harrisons. Like we know the connection here is that Peyote Trip is going for like the hat trick. He needs one more Harrison to complete the set. And that's kind of the main reason why we're hearing both of these stories. But the problem is with the Harrison story, it has absolutely nothing to do with Peyote. The Peyote story literally has nothing to do with the Harrisons until they cross over for literally one page at the, like towards the end of the book. They have one crossover page of these two stories. So it feels very disconnected the whole time, rather than having these stories be more intertwined and have this be more of a complete narrative. I just had two different books, like separate, like chapter by chapter. I was going back and forth between these two stories for no good reason that I can think of. It just made no sense that they weren't connected at all until literally one page at the end. What? So I liked more so the hell storyline. I feel like if we focus there and then put like a dash of Harrison family drama in, I think it would have been much more successful as a narrative. It's just, I don't know why this was written how it was. I just don't particularly think it works very well. And like the Harrison family drama feels very disconnected because it's not very hellish. It's just more of like there's an old murder mystery in the family and a lot of dysfunction. So, like, I don't know. I don't really feel like it was necessary to do it that way. So I would have maybe rated it higher if it was differently formatted. But as it is, it's fine, I guess. It's a 3. It's average, I guess. It's not bad. It's just not good either. It's 3. I also had my first DNF of the year in January, and that was Nothing More to Tell by Karen M. McManus. And now I read One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus like years ago, and I did enjoy it. And I read 105 pages of this. So I try to give everything about 100 pages to capture my attention. And like, I was not captured by this book. It just wasn't particularly interesting. I know ultimately it's a murder mystery and it's with like teenagers. I don't think it works with high school kids. I think it should have been with kids who are like freshman year in college. I think it would have made the narrative infinitely better if they were a little older. The fact that they're like literal children in this, it's like not vibing with the whole murder mystery plot. Mind you, I've only read 105 pages of it, so I can't give this a full review, but it just wasn't very interesting. I didn't have any connection to any of the characters. I didn't care what they were doing at all. And it's not just like I'm a grown-ass adult and these are teenagers. They're just not very interesting teenagers, if I'm being honest. Like, I'll still read a YA book and like it. It's just, they're not that interesting. Like, they're kind of boring kids. So maybe there's something to be said for realism, because I feel like most teenagers don't live like a very like, wow, you're so exciting kind of life. They live like normal lives. But for me, it just wasn't really a compelling story. I didn't really care to find out the answer to the mystery. I just I gave up on it. My last horror adjacent book is also kind of related to my last book to review, which are both book club selections. So first things first, I have White Horse by Erica T. Worth. This was selected as our book of the month for my patrons and channel members, and I already did a full book club discussion with them on it, so I don't want to give out too much because it is patron exclusive. But overall, I don't know. I also kind of thought this book was fine. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I rounded up to 4, but like, for real, like the end of the book really saved it for me because things start picking up steam finally, maybe like 75% of the way through the book, and then the whole like finale gambit worked for me. It finally got into some really good spooky magic stuff that I was like wanting for so much of the book, but I didn't necessarily get. So like the ending saved it. But the basic gist here, there's a native woman, her name is Carrie, and she is a hot mess of a human, and she's trying to figure out her mother's death, and it was probably foul play. Who killed her mom? And there's also a lot of native like spirituality and culture in this book. I did see an article that came out recently about this author questioning whether or not she is indigenous. Now, I don't know enough about this person's background to make any judgments on it, but I did see that article. But for me, just reading the story as an outsider to indigenous culture, I felt like this was very based in it. And it had a lot of really like specific things that I think you would find with two people of indigenous heritage, how they talk to each other, how they feel about things. I felt like it was very steeped in that. So I felt like, I don't know if it was accurate because I'm not part of that culture, but it felt very specific. So I really liked the cultural elements that I got in this book, and I liked some of the lore here, but ultimately it just wasn't the best story arc. Like it could have been stronger in elements, and I could have liked characters more than I did, but it's fine. At 3.5 it was okay, I guess. And last up, for the Blades and Bodice Rippers book club, I read Let in the Mist by Hope Mirrlees. This came out in the 1920s, so we're doing OG 23, basically OG books from our genres of choice. And this time we did fantasy, and this one in particular, I don't know, I kind of refer to it as Whoville and the War on Drugs, because that's what it feels like. Basically, they have this like land of people who are very kind of silly. They feel like fairy tale people, Whoville, if you will. And they're trying to stop fairy fruit, which is like a drug-like thing in their world, from getting in. And so basically it's Whoville and the War on Drugs, and how are you gonna stop it? And then I'll just tell you right now, the end of the book is basically, fuck it, let's do drugs. Like, I'm just like, okay. I did like elements of it. I thought like, it's funny because it's poking fun at things that need to be poked fun at, without getting into a lot, because there is a whole video book club discussion on this already up on YouTube. But I liked a lot of like the humorous elements in this. The fantasy elements, it felt very kind of like Tolkien-esque, which, mind you, this came out before Lord of the Rings came out. So obviously this book was not inspired by Tolkien, but it has that vibe. And I read Tolkien first, so that's what I'm comparing it to. But it has that kind of same writing style. So if you really like that writing style, I think you would get into this. But yeah, ultimately, it's Whoville and the War on Drugs. There you go. All right, so those are all the books I read this January. And overall, I found some really good ones. I found some ones that were less than good. But overall, stellar month. Good stuff I was reading. Let me know in the comments down below. I don't know, what were you reading in January? What was the first book you read this year? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos and a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the descriptions down below. And on that note, I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.